What would you do if the biggest bully in your school was just moments away from humiliating you? Again? Jake had been through this routine before. The shoves, the taunts, the stolen notebooks. It never ended. But today, just when he thought no one would step in, a deep voice cut through the laughter. That's enough. The crowd froze. Jake turned around, and his heart nearly stopped. Standing behind him, arms crossed, towering over everyone, was Shaquille O'Neal. But what happened next? No one saw coming. Hey, real quick, before we get into this wild story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Jake winces as he pulls his hoodie over his head, the fabric brushing against the fresh bruise on his upper arm. A sharp sting shoots through his body, forcing him to pause. He clenches his jaw, willing himself not to flinch. If he reacts too much, his mom might notice. Jake, hurry up! You don't want to be late, his mom calls from the kitchen. Coming, he shouts back, forcing his voice to sound normal. He glances at himself in the mirror. The dark circles under his eyes are getting worse. His lower lip still has a faint cut from last week. He rubs at his bruised arm, but the pain doesn't fade. His fingers shake as he ties his shoelaces, taking deep breaths to calm his nerves. Today would be better. Today, maybe, Derek and his gang wouldn't notice him. But he knows better. Throwing his backpack over his shoulder, he rushes downstairs. His mom hands him a piece of toast, smiling, oblivious to the battle her son fights every day. Have a good day, sweetie. Yeah, you too, Mom. He forces a smile, then steps outside. The school bus pulls up and Jake climbs in, slipping into the first empty seat he sees. He keeps his head low, hoping no one pays attention to him. The ride is short, but each second feels longer as he dreads stepping off. As soon as the bus doors creak open, he cautiously steps down. Maybe, just maybe, he can make it to class without. A cold chill runs down his spine. Across the parking lot, leaning against the school fence with that smug smirk on his face, stands Derek. His broad shoulders make him look even more intimidating, and his group of friends, if they can even be called that, laugh loudly at something he says. Then, as if sensing Jake's presence, Derek turns his head and locks eyes with him. Jake's stomach drops. A slow, predatory grin spreads across Derek's face as he pushes himself off the fence. He cracks his knuckles, rolling his shoulders like he's warming up for something. Then from right behind Jake, a voice sneers in his ear. Look who decided to show up! Jake doesn't have to turn around. He already knows. They've got him. Jake's heartbeat pounds in his ears as he feels hands shove him forward. His feet scrape against the pavement, barely catching himself before he falls face first onto the concrete. Laughter ripples through the air. He turns slowly, already knowing who it is. Derek. The school's biggest bully stands there with his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. Behind him, his usual crew, Ryan, tall and lanky with a cruel grin, and Mason, shorter but built like a tank, stand like guards, blocking any chance of escape. Jake swallows hard, his mouth dry. You think you're too good to talk to us, loser? Derek asks, his voice dripping with mockery. Jake shakes his head. I didn't say anything. Derek chuckles, looking over his shoulder at Ryan and Mason. You hear that? He didn't say anything. He turns back, eyes narrowing. That's the problem. Jake knows what's coming next. It always starts like this. The taunts, the shoving, the humiliation. He clenches his fists inside his hoodie pockets, trying to brace himself. Just leave me alone, he mutters under his breath, hoping, praying, they'll get bored and walk away. But Derek lives for moments like this. Aw, did we hurt your feelings? Ryan sneers. Poor little Jakey. Mason snickers, cracking his knuckles. Maybe we should teach him some respect. The crowd around them thickens. Kids whisper, some glancing around as if hoping a teacher will step in. But no one does. They never do. Derek suddenly steps forward, yanking Jake's hoodie. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Jake jerks back, shaking his head. Don't touch me. That only fuels Derek's grin. Or what? Before Jake can answer, Derek rips his backpack off his shoulder. With a dramatic flourish, Derek lifts it high in the air and dumps everything onto the ground. Notebooks, pens, his lunch, all of it spills onto the pavement. Pages flutter like fallen leaves. A few kids gasp, others chuckle. Jake stares in horror as his most prized possession, a sketchbook he spent months working on, flips open, pages bending under the weight of careless feet. Derek notices and grins. "What do we have here?" He bends down and snatches the sketchbook before Jake can react. Jake's chest tightens. "Don't!" But it's too late. Derek holds it up. Kizrania flipping through the pages. His eyes widen, then his smirk deepens. "Aw, look, guys, Jakey's an artist." Laughter erupts around them. Jake feels his face burn, his sketches, his escape, his passion. The one thing that brings him peace are now a joke. And the worst part? No one does anything to stop it. Jake's stomach twists into knots as he watches his sketchbook flutter open on the ground. The soft pencil strokes, the careful details. His secret world is exposed for everyone to see. Derek's eyes light up with wicked amusement as he snatches it up before Jake can grab it. "Well, well, well," Derek sneers, holding the sketchbook high above his head. "What do we have here?" Jake's heart pounds. "Give it back," he mutters, barely above a whisper. Derek ignores him, flipping through the pages with exaggerated interest. "Wow," he says mockingly. "This is adorable." He turns the book so his friends can see, pointing at one of the sketches. A drawing of a superhero, towering and strong, fists clenched like he's ready to take on the world. Derek bursts out laughing. "Let me guess, this is supposed to be you." The crowd roars with laughter. Someone nudges Jake from behind, sending him stumbling forward. "Oh, the little baby likes to draw." Ryan jeers, nudging Mason, who doubles over in laughter. Jake clenches his fists at his sides, his entire body shaking. He wants to yell, to grab the book and run, but he's frozen in place, his face burning with shame. A teacher walks by in the distance. Jake's eyes dart toward her, his silent plea for help. She sees. She hesitates. Then she looks away and keeps walking. Jake's stomach drops. No one is coming to save him. Derek flips to another page and gasps in mock admiration. "Whoa, guys, look at this! He drew a picture of a girl." Jake's breath catches. He knows what's coming next. Derek turns the sketchbook toward the crowd, revealing a beautifully shaded drawing of a girl sitting by a window, lost in thought. The level of detail, the soft waves in her hair, the distant look in her eyes, makes it obvious Jake spent hours on it. "Who is she, Jakey?" Derek coos. "Your girlfriend." Ryan lets out a loud fake gasp. "No way! Jake has a crush." The crowd erupts again, voices overlapping with cruel laughter and mocking whistles. Jake swallows hard, his vision blurring. Not this drawing, not her. His hands ball into fists so tightly his nails dig into his palms. "Please," he whispers, voice barely audible. "Stop." Derek only grins. "Make me." He rips the page straight out of the sketchbook. The sound of tearing paper echoes louder than the laughter. Jake flinches as if he's been punched in the gut. His knees feel weak. His art, his escape, his passion, ripped apart like it meant nothing. Derek crumples the page into a ball and tosses it at Jake's chest. "Here, maybe you can tape it back together, loser." The final wave of laughter crashes over him. It's deafening. Then suddenly, "That's enough." The laughter dies instantly. A deep, booming voice slices through the chaos like a blade. Jake's breath hitches. He slowly turns around, his mouth falling open in shock. The crowd parts like the Red Sea. And there, standing behind him, arms crossed over his massive chest, is a man whose presence alone could silence an entire stadium. Shaquille O'Neal. The entire schoolyard goes still. Even Derek, for the first time in his life, looks nervous. Shaq steps forward, his towering frame casting a shadow over Derek. His eyes, calm yet piercing, lock onto the bully. "You got something to say?" Shaq asks, voice even, but carrying a weight that makes Derek's smirk falter. For the first time since the torment began, Jake isn't alone. The air in the schoolyard shifts. The once roaring laughter dies, replaced by stunned silence. A massive shadow stretches across the pavement, swallowing Derek and his friends in its wake. The towering figure steps forward, Shaquille O'Neal. Gasps ripple through the crowd. A few kids whisper in hushed voices, but most just stare, wide-eyed. Derek's smirk fades. Jake wipes his face with the sleeve of his hoodie, confusion battling with disbelief. Why is Shaq here? And, more importantly, why is he stepping in? Shaq takes another slow step forward, his sheer size making Derek instinctively shift back. He doesn't say anything at first, just looks down at the crumpled paper at Jake's feet, then back up at Derek. The weight of that stare is suffocating. Shaq's deep voice finally breaks the silence. "What do you think you're doing?" Derek swallows hard. His confidence wavers for the first time. Uh, Nothing." Shaq tilts his head slightly unimpressed. "Nothing?" Ryan, standing next to Derek, quickly shoves his hands into his pockets and mutters, "Yeah, we were just messing around, man. No big deal." Shaq glances at Jake, who still hasn't moved. The kid looks like he's in shock, like he still can't believe someone is actually standing up for him. Shaq gestures to the mess on the ground. "Doesn't look like nothing to me." Jake swallows, eyes darting between Shaq and the bullies. He doesn't know what to say. Derek's bravado is slipping fast, but he tries to keep up the act. He shrugs, attempting to sound casual. "Look, man, we were just—" Shaq holds up a hand, cutting him off. "You got two choices, big man," Shaq says, his voice low but firm. "You can either start picking this stuff up," Derek stiffens, "or," Shaq crosses his arms, "we can have a different kind of conversation." The meaning behind that hangs heavy in the air. Derek glances at his friends, but none of them say a word. They look just as nervous as he does. For the first time in forever, Jake feels safe. Not just because Shaq is famous, not just because he's huge, but because for once someone isn't walking past him. Someone isn't pretending they don't see what's happening. For the first time, the bullies are the ones feeling small. Jake exhales shakily. He bends down to pick up his fallen sketchbook. His hands are still trembling, but this time, it's not from fear. Shaq watches as Derek hesitates, jaw clenched. The entire schoolyard waits. Then Shaq shifts his stance slightly, raising an eyebrow. "That's funny," he says, "'cause it sure looked like something." Derek's face pales. Derek forces a laugh, but it's shaky, uncertain. His usual confidence, so powerful just moments ago, now teeters on the edge of collapse. Shaq tilts his head slightly, a knowing smirk curling on his lips. He crosses his massive arms, his towering frame making Derek look like a child in comparison. "You like picking on people smaller than you?" Shaq's deep voice rumbles through the schoolyard, carrying more weight than any insult Derek had thrown at Jake. Silence. A few kids shift uncomfortably, but no one dares to interrupt. Derek's eyes dart around, looking for a way out. His friends, once cheering him on, suddenly find their shoes interesting. He squares his shoulders, forcing himself to puff up his chest. "So what?" Shaq chuckles, a low, amused sound that somehow makes Derek even more nervous. "Then let's make this fair." Shaq steps back, gesturing toward the basketball court. "You versus me, right now, one-on-one." A gasp ripples through the crowd. No one saw that coming. Derek blinks rapidly. "Wait, what?" Shaq grins, giving a casual shrug. "What? You don't want to play against someone your own size?" The students start whispering, nudging each other. "Bro, no way. He's calling him out. Derek's gonna get wrecked." Derek's hands clench into fists. He feels trapped, humiliated in front of everyone. He has to say yes. He scoffs, trying to regain control. "Man, you're old. Bet you can't even run without hurting your knees." Shaq raises an eyebrow. "Try me." The schoolyard is dead silent, waiting for Derek's response. His face drains of color. He looks over at his friends, hoping for some backup. Ryan shrugs, barely able to hide his smirk. "Might as well try. Can't back down now." Derek hesitates, then juts his chin forward. "Fine." He glares at Shaq. "But don't cry when you lose, old man." A wave of excited murmurs spreads through the crowd. Some students start running toward the basketball court, eager to get the best view. Jake watches, barely able to process what's happening. One minute he was the victim of Derek's bullying, and now Shaq had flipped the entire situation on its head. Shaq starts walking toward the court, completely unfazed. "Come on, tough guy. Show everyone what you got." Derek swallows hard. His bravado is cracking, but there's no turning back now. The schoolyard erupts in cheers. "Game on!" The schoolyard transforms into an arena within minutes. Kids push and shove to get a good view of the basketball court, their excited chatter buzzing like a swarm of bees. Derek stands at the top of the key, bouncing the ball with a little too much force, trying to project confidence he doesn't truly feel. Shaq stands across from him, relaxed. Too relaxed. Hands on his hips, a casual grin playing at his lips. Derek narrows his eyes, trying to ignore the fact that Shaquille freaking O'Neal is actually challenging him. Fine. Derek rolls his shoulders, cracking his knuckles for effect. But don't cry when you lose, old man. The crowd erupts in laughter. Shaq doesn't even blink. He simply bends down slightly and flicks the ball toward Derek. Take your best shot. Derek's heart pounds as the ball lands in his hands. The thump-thump of the rubber against the pavement is drowned out by the hundreds of eyes watching his every move. He takes a slow dribble, then another. He needs to play it smart. He has to prove himself. Derek glances at Shaq, who doesn't even look worried. He's standing there, barely crouched into a defensive stance. He's underestimating me. Derek grips the ball tighter, then explodes forward. He dribbles left, then crosses over to the right, hoping to fake Shaq out. The crowd leans in, some kids already cheering. Then just as Derek is about to take his shot, Shaq moves. Not a lot, just enough. A massive hand swats the ball clean out of Derek's hands. The smack echoes across the court like a gunshot. The ball bounces off the fence and rolls to a stop near the bleachers. The crowd loses it. Oh! Bro! He sent that ball into another zip code. Nah, Derek, go get that ball from space. Derek stumbles back, his face turning beet red. Shaq doesn't gloat. He just stands there, arms folded. Try again. The ball is thrown back to Derek. He catches it, swallowing hard. He has to score. He dribbles again, faster this time, trying to catch Shaq off guard. He fakes right, then bolts left, pushing all his energy into a desperate drive to the hoop. For a split second, he thinks he has a chance. Then, wham! Shaq doesn't just block him. He grabs the ball out of the air mid-shot. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Shaq spins the ball on his finger, shaking his head. Man, you sure are strong when it's someone weaker than you. The words sting worse than any block. Derek clenches his jaw. He's humiliated. He's embarrassed. But most of all, he's realizing just how small he really is. The ball drops to Shaq's side. He steps closer, towering over Derek. Try again, he says, his voice steady but firm. Derek looks at the ground, his hands balled into fists. The entire school watches, waiting. What is he gonna do now? Derek stumbles back, his heart hammering in his chest. Laughter erupts from the crowd, echoing across the court like a rolling wave. Oh, he got blocked again. Man, Derek can't even score on a retired player. I thought you were the best, bro. His face burns with humiliation, his pride crumbling under the weight of the taunts. This was supposed to be his moment, the moment he proved his dominance, the moment he put Jake in his place for good. Instead, he was being humiliated. Shaq, calm as ever, simply bounces the ball once before holding it out toward Derek. Try again. Derek's jaw tightens. His fingers twitch before snatching the ball. He has to make a shot. He takes a step back, dribbles fast, then explodes forward. This time he's going all out. No holding back, no hesitation. He leaps off the ground, reaching high for a layup. Wham! Shaq's massive hand swats the ball into the crowd. The students lose it. Derek lands awkwardly, stumbling backward. His arms hang limply at his sides as he stares at his empty hands. His breath comes fast, his chest rising and falling in uneven gasps. This can't be happening. Shaq didn't even break a sweat. The ball is tossed back to Shaq, who casually spins it on his fingertip. His expression isn't mocking. If anything, he looks bored. That your best shot? Derek grits his teeth. Try again. Derek's body feels hot, like every eye in the crowd is drilling into him. He yanks the ball from Shaq's hands and takes a step back. His mind races. All right, no more playing around. He pumps his shoulders, taking a deep breath. This time he lines up his shot perfectly. With every ounce of focus, he jumps and releases the ball. The crowd watches in tense silence as the ball soars through the air and clanks against the rim. Missed. A sharp collective oof ripples through the crowd. Derek's stomach drops. His best shot wasn't even close. Shaq casually grabs the rebound, dribbling it effortlessly. His voice is even, almost disappointed. You sure are strong when it's someone weaker than you, he says. But the second you go up against someone bigger, you fold. The words cut deeper than any block. Derek swallows hard, his throat dry. His hands, still curled into fists, loosen slightly. For the first time in his life, he isn't just feeling embarrassed. He's feeling ashamed. The students in the crowd aren't laughing anymore. The energy has changed. Dang, Shaq's right. Derek always picks on kids smaller than him. But now, look at him. Man, he's getting a taste of his own medicine. Even Derek's own friends are whispering among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances. Shaq bends down slightly, locking eyes with him. It's not about strength, kid. It's about respect. You got to learn that the hard way? Or you want to listen now? Derek's fists finally unclench. His shoulders slump, and he looks down at his feet. For the first time in a long time, he listens. The weight of his actions, the months, no, years of bullying, all come crashing down on him. Jake, standing off to the side, watches cautiously. He looks stunned, unsure whether to believe what he's seeing. The Derek he knows would never back down. The Derek he knows would have fought until he won. But right now, Derek looks defeated. Shaq dribbles the ball once, then holds it out toward Derek one last time. Go ahead. Derek hesitates. His hands feel heavy as he takes the ball. He looks around, at the crowd, at Shaq, at Jake. The usual fire inside him, the one that always made him want to prove himself, is flickering out. He takes a deep breath and shoots. The ball clangs against the rim again. Shaq catches the rebound effortlessly. You done? Derek doesn't answer. He can't. He just looks at Jake, really looks at him, for the first time. Jake isn't cowering. He isn't shaking. For the first time, Jake looks stronger than him, and it terrifies him. Derek looks down, his face burning red, not from anger, but from realization. The entire school is watching, waiting. What is he going to do next? A hush falls over the basketball court. The laughter, the jeers, the tension, it all fades into silence as Shaq takes a step forward. With one massive hand, he places it gently on Jake's shoulder. The gesture is simple, but the message is loud. Jake looks up, still stunned, his mind racing. Shaq isn't just standing beside him, he's standing up for him. Shaq turns toward the crowd, his deep voice steady and commanding. You bullied him because he's different, but different is good. Derek shifts uncomfortably, his confidence shattered. His friends stand frozen, not daring to speak. Shaq kneels slightly, bringing himself to Jake's level. You like to draw, huh? Jake hesitates, his eyes flickering to Derek before giving a small nod. Yeah. Shaq reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, worn sketchbook. The cover is faded, edges slightly curled, but the pages inside are filled with intricate drawings, each one a piece of his younger self. You know who else loved to draw? Me. The crowd murmurs in surprise. A few students lean in, eyes widening. Jake's own eyes go round with disbelief. Wait, you did? Shaq chuckles, flipping through the pages. I used to sketch every day when I was a kid. You probably don't know this, but before basketball, art was my thing. The revelation shakes Jake. The idea that a giant like Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball legend, the world-famous athlete, used to sit and draw just like him, it feels surreal. Even Derek looks thrown off, his mouth open slightly, his grip loosening on his fists. Yeah, I loved it, Shaq continues. Still do. Helped me express myself, helped me through some tough times, just like it helps you. Jake swallows hard. His drawings did help him. They were his escape, his way of feeling safe. And now, for the first time, he wasn't being mocked for it. He was being validated. Shaq looks at Derek now, his gaze steady. You ever think about that before? Derek stiffens. You bullied him because he's different, Shaq repeats. But that difference, that's what makes him special. A few students exchange glances, their faces shifting from amusement to guilt. Man, I didn't know Jake could draw like that, one kid mutters. Yeah, we never even paid attention, another whispers. Even Derek's friends don't seem as confident anymore. One of them steps back, Rubbing his neck awkwardly, Shaq taps the sketchbook. You ever stop and think that maybe Jake's talent is just as valuable as yours? Or do you only respect things you understand? Derek looks down, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. He's never felt like this before. Vulnerable, exposed, like he was the one being put in his place. Derek swallows hard, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know that. Shaq raises an eyebrow. Well, now you do. Question is, what are you going to do about it? The entire school waits for Derek's next move. Derek shifts his weight uncomfortably, his eyes darting from Shaq to the crowd, then finally landing on Jake. His usual smug expression is gone. His shoulders are tense, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. For the first time, he doesn't look like the untouchable tough guy. He looks nervous. The court is still filled with students, but the energy has shifted. The same kids who had laughed with Derek earlier now watch in silence, waiting to see what he does next. Derek exhales sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, man, I was a jerk. Jake stares at him, wide-eyed. Did Derek just admit that? I didn't think, Derek continues, kicking at the ground. I mean, I thought it was just messing around, you know? I didn't think it actually... He stops, then sighs. I didn't think it mattered. Shaq crosses his arms. But it did. Derek swallows hard and nods. Yeah, I guess it did. Jake still hasn't spoken. He's too stunned to process it. Just minutes ago, Derek had been laughing at him, shoving him, humiliating him. And now he looked like a kid who just realized he was wrong for the first time in his life. Look, man, Derek mumbles again, still avoiding eye contact. I was a jerk. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I'm sorry. Jake's fingers tighten around his sketchbook, his mind racing. He had dreamed of this moment, of Derek finally realizing what he had put him through. But now that it was happening, Jake didn't know what to say. Did he forgive him? Did he even want to? Shaq, standing tall beside him, nudges him gently. What do you think, Jake? Jake looks up at the towering legend. Shaq doesn't tell him what to do. He just waits, letting him decide. For the first time, Jake feels like he has the power in this situation. He studies Derek's face, searching for any sign of insincerity. But there's no smirk, no arrogant stance, no hidden agenda. Just a kid who finally understood the damage he had done. Jake lets out a slow breath, then steps forward. He doesn't say anything. Instead, he slowly holds out his hand. Truce? The entire school holds its breath. Derek stares at the offered hand for a moment, frozen in place. Then, he reaches out. The principal walks onto the court, shaking his head in disbelief. He had heard about fights and bullying before, but never had he seen something like this. The entire school was silent, watching as Jake and Derek dropped their hands after a truce that no one expected. Shaq, towering over everyone, glanced at the principal with a raised eyebrow. This how y'all run things around here? The principal clears his throat. We try our best, Mr. O'Neal. Shaq chuckles. Might need to try harder. By lunchtime, the story had spread to every hallway, every classroom, and even beyond the school walls. Videos of the moment had already hit social media, but the real change was happening inside the school. That afternoon, the principal makes an announcement over the loudspeaker. Effective immediately, we are implementing a new anti-bullying initiative. And thanks to a very generous donation from Mr. Shaquille O'Neal, our school will also be introducing new art supplies and programs to encourage students to express themselves positively. Jake's jaw drops as the principal continues. And to celebrate this change, we will be commissioning a new gym mural designed and painted by one of our very own talented students, Jake Walker. The entire cafeteria erupts into cheers. Jake's heart pounds in his chest. He grips his sketchbook, barely believing what he just heard. Shaq leans down to him and winks. Told you, your art was special. Just when Jake thinks it can't get any crazier, another announcement follows. And we have another volunteer for the project. Derek Anderson has personally requested to join in painting the mural as a way to demonstrate growth and change. The cafeteria quiets down. Eyes shift toward Derek, sitting a few tables away, his face still a little red. He clears his throat and shrugs. What? I meant it when I said I wanted to change. Jake studies him for a long moment before nodding. Then let's do it. A few students murmur in shock, but then the unexpected happens. One person starts clapping, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire cafeteria is applauding, not just for Jake, not just for Shaq, but for the possibility of change. Shaq folds his arms, nodding approvingly as the students around him cheer. Think y'all learned something today? Derek smirks slightly. Yeah, don't challenge Shaq to basketball. The entire cafeteria roars with laughter, and just like that, something in the school changes forever. The school hallways buzzed with excitement the next morning, but it wasn't just about the gym mural or the anti-bullying initiative. It was something bigger, because overnight, a student had uploaded the video of Shaq humbling Derek on the basketball court, followed by the unexpected truce and heartfelt lesson, and the internet exploded. By the time Jake woke up, his phone was vibrating so much it nearly fell off his nightstand. He groggily reached for it, squinting at the bright screen. 12 missed calls, 100 plus unread messages. Twitter trending. Number sign, Shaq saves the day. Jake's eyes widened as he scrolled through the notifications. The video had been picked up by multiple news outlets. Every major sports account was reposting it. Celebrities were commenting, praising Shaq for stepping in. Shaq is more than a legend. He's a role model. The world needs more of this. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Man, Shaq just taught a masterclass on kindness and strength. Love to see it. LeBron James. The comments flooded in. This wasn't just about basketball. This was about standing up for what's right. I wish I had someone like Shaq at my school growing up. Derek got humbled so fast, but respect to him for apologizing. Jake couldn't believe what he was seeing. Just a day ago, he was invisible, another quiet kid trying to survive high school. And now, Jake's thumb hovered over his notifications until something caught his eye. An email. Subject, scholarship opportunity, School of Visual Arts. His breath hitched. He tapped on the message, his heart pounding. Dear Jake, we came across your incredible artwork in the video featuring Shaquille O'Neal, and we're truly inspired by your talent. We believe your artistic skills deserve to be nurtured, and we would love to offer you a full scholarship to our program. Jake reread the words at least 5 times before it sank in. A scholarship, a real opportunity to pursue his art. His hands shook as he fumbled for his phone. He needed to tell someone. His mom, his teachers. But before he could call anyone, another notification popped up. Shaq had just posted something new. Shaq. Different is good. Proud of this kid. Proud of this school. Proud of this lesson. Y'all keep spreading kindness. The world needs it. Turn around. Choose kindness. Jake exhaled, a slow grin spreading across his face. Shaq had changed his life. And now, it was just the beginning. For the first time in years, Jake didn't feel the familiar weight of dread pressing down on his chest as he stepped onto the school bus. No sinking feeling in his stomach. No urge to shrink into his seat and go unnoticed. Today was different. As Jake walked through the school doors, he felt the stares, but they weren't the same ones he had gotten before. Whispers filled the hallways. Not mocking, not cruel, respectful. That's the kid Shaq stood up for. Dude, did you see his drawings? They're insane. Man, I wish I had skills like that. Jake's fingers curled around the strap of his backpack. A small, nervous smile tugged at the corners of his lips. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. Just as he turned the corner toward his locker, his heart nearly stopped. Derek. Jake braced himself, instinctively expecting the worst. But instead of a smirk or a cruel remark, Derek simply nodded, a small, uncertain wave. Hey, Derek cleared his throat. That mural you're doing for the gym looks cool. Jake blinked. Was he complimenting him? Derek shifted awkwardly. If you, need help or something, let me know. Jake studied him carefully. The Derek from a week ago would never have said this. Maybe Shaq's lesson had gotten through to him after all. Jake gave a slow nod. Thanks. Derek nodded back before walking away. No sneers, no insults, no shoves. Jake let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. At lunch, instead of sitting alone, Jake found himself surrounded by students who actually wanted to talk to him. "Man, your drawings are next level," one kid said, flipping through his sketchbook. "You ever thought about making comics?" Another chimed in. Jake couldn't stop smiling. For the first time, people saw him, not just some easy target. As the day ended, Jake walked past the bulletin board where the principal had pinned a newspaper article. Shaquille O'Neal teaches a lesson in kindness at local high school. Next to it was a handwritten note from Shaq himself. To Jake, keep drawing, keep dreaming, and most of all, keep standing tall. Proud of you, kid. Shaq. Jake touched the note gently, feeling its weight in his chest. Shaq had given him something far more valuable than just protection. He had given him confidence. Jake slung his backpack over his shoulder and headed for the exit. One moment can change everything, and today he chose to believe in kindness.